we heard from a lot of people is that, and this should have been obvious from day one, but people love their IDEs, right? We all love, I grew up with Visual Studio for better or worse, and recently I've made some changes there, but we know a lot of people are using Sublime Text, they're using WebStorm. They do not want to switch to a different IDE, it's just not comfortable at all. So one of the big things coming up very soon, within the next month or two, is a command line interface for Icenium. So this will allow us, WebStorm or Sublime Text or any other Eclipse users, to interact with all the build tools, the simulators, all the good stuff from Icenium without actually using one of the IDEs. So that's a big new feature coming up. We are going to have full Windows Phone 8 support. Again, for me, one of the big draws of hybrid is that you can do cross-platform development. Well, if we're only allowing iOS and Android, that's not like cross-platform enough for me. So Windows Phone 8 is coming again in a couple months. We're going to have live debugging on all platforms. Right now, when I plug in a device, I can only debug it in iOS, but it'll be coming on Android and Windows Phone as well. Wireless live sync. This will be a pretty cool feature. So this is the idea of if you have testers, say on the same Wi-Fi network, you can make a change to your app, and actually everybody who's connected to that wireless network running the app will see those changes made while they're testing or while they're using it. Plugins, I've already alluded to this in the past, but you're going to see a lot coming from Icenium with plugins in the near future. This is so app distribution. This is a mini plug for my baby at Telerik. I'm PM for a new app distribution and testing feature that's going to have tight integration with Icenium. We found that a lot of people, everyone doesn't necessarily want to submit to the public app stores, right? They have a lot, they want to do either internal testing on a bigger scale, or they want to submit to an internal group, or they have customers, they have a limited customer and they don't want to go through the public app stores. That's what my product is going to be all about. And now that I've been calling it Icenium all this time, we are going to have a new name. It's not officially released yet, but within, I think it's within 2 weeks, Telerik is undergoing a big rebranding process. And the idea is to take in some of these brands, such as Icenium, and sort of move them under the Telerik umbrella. So it's going to be called Telerik App Builder in a couple weeks. So if you see that name, it's a same product, still Icenium. Kendo UI, what's coming next for Kendo UI? Well, for Kendo UI Mobile, and specifically, we're going to have big time updates to Android 4 theme. Kendo UI GeoViz is coming out, and this is going to be a widget that's part of Kendo UI DataViz. It's what is it called? Like a geospatial widget that allows you to consume map tiles and essentially do, if you're familiar with like Leaflet or Google Maps really, or Bing Maps, it's sort of our version of that. Kendo UI Grid Frozen Columns. If there's any Kendo UI Grid users here, like everybody for like a year has been wanting frozen columns. People go nuts, like if they're Kendo UI Grid users, and like we tell them that they're getting frozen columns. A Kendo UI linter is coming, so it allows you to do automatic syntax verification of your Kendo UI code. And within Icenium or App Builder, we're going to have a Kendo UI Mobile Designer improvements that are going to be actually pretty dramatic improvements over what you have right now. Actually, before I get to that, there's one other thing I was going to say. It's I'm blanking. It's a new feature I thought of like just when I was on my way over here. Forget it. Just ignore that I said that. So that's about it. Again, if you have any questions, you can always find me later at those two. You can look at telerik.com for more information about any of our products. I actually have, if anybody really thinks that they would be a legitimate heavy user of Icenium, I have like 3 or 4 free licenses for Kendo UI. And let me show you the pricing, actually. Well, I mentioned that I have some free licenses, and I might as well show you the pricing as well.
Make a bum rush afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Let's look at pricing. So there's a 30-day free trial, of course. If you go on an annual subscription, we have a developer subscription for $16 a month. Likewise, professional $39, ultimate $79. The big difference between the three, I usually recommend developer to everybody who's certainly just starting out because it provides you access to everything I showed you, except for it doesn't give you access to Kendo UI DataViz. So that's the big difference between the developer and the professional version. You do get a license for Kendo UI Mobile, so you can use that with any of the licenses. If you want to upgrade to professional, it does give you database, it does give you personal support tickets. Otherwise, you submit support requests on our forum, which is also pretty good, just doesn't give you that guaranteed response time. If you are a big Visual Studio user, you would need to upgrade to the Ultimate license, and that gives you access to the Icenium extension. And if you just happen to be a Telerik customer already, this product is included as part of the DevCraft suite, which is sort of all the products rolled into one SKU. So that's about it. Any questions at all from anybody?
The Icenium Visual Studio plugin?
Yep.
Is that a NuGet or a Brilliant?
Yes. Yep. It's available in NuGet. It's you just search for Icenium.
Is that a monthly feed also, or is there a monthly?
Yep. So that's included in the Ultimate Edition.
Included in
In the Ultimate Edition of Icenium.
Okay.
So you have to be a subscriber to use that. If you do the free trial, a free trial actually acts as an Ultimate subscription, so you can try it out for 30 days.
What's the licensing on Kendo UI? Is it open source or is it?
That's a great question. I don't know the details of it. There is a version. Actually, let me pull up the Kendo UI website really quick. There is a big push in this next 6 months to a year to open source more of Kendo UI than we do right now. It's in the purchase.
Well, you get the source though if you,
You do get the source for the Kendo UI Complete.
right.
There is.
I think the Kendo UI not including the database and mobile is GPIs.
Is it? Yeah.
Just the Kendo UI.
There is a page somewhere. I can never find it when I need to, but yeah, there's a subset of Kendo UI that is open source.
So what's Icenium written in the IDE?
Kendo UI.
Oh, it's
It is. Yep. Yep. They totally dog fooded it there.
That's cool.
So your UW site,
Yeah.
your source on the UW site, that was made in Kendo UI?
Yeah. So what you could do, I mean, anybody today could take the Badger Gate app if you download it in iOS and then you get that in iTunes. You can extract that archive and see the code. Which it's kind of weird that you can actually do that, but with an app. But yeah, you can see a lot of crappy code.
The game day app?
Yeah. Yep.
So for the pricing, you need the $6.99 license?
No.
Kendo UI and then the $19?
No. If you, Icenium includes a license for Kendo UI Mobile. Wherever that went. It's listed on the pricing page. If you have an active Icenium license, you also have an active Kendo UI Mobile license.
And what about royalties after you launch your application? Is there any?
So there's no restrictions.
$19 is all you pay.
Yep,
So
yep.
That's very reasonable.
Where's Telerik located?
Bulgaria. Yeah. So all of our, Telerik's about, I think it's like up to about 900 employees now, and I think it's about 700 are engineers and engineering staff working in Bulgaria, and then the rest of us are remote all over the world.
Awesome.
How does that percentage of engineers to total staff compare with US companies?
I don't know. It's a good
I
question.
mean, it's not a technical question, but I have a feeling it's just a higher percentage of engineers.
It might be, yeah.
I'm not saying it with you.
How long has Kendo UI been around?
Ryan, do you remember like 2 years now?
Maybe 2.5 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was working with it early on.
Yeah, it's definitely matured. I mean, it's a really nice framework to use.
So it means yourself, I mean, I work for UW systems, and is it part of the culture? Is it one of the side, is kind of one of the product vertical area?
Mhm.
Okay.
Is it-
You guys
sorry,
have like a site license for it, or is it, was it just one product or one-off?
I think it's licensed per developer, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it's all per developer.
But it'd be easier to convince my department to use it if I knew a whole other department was using it, or was this a one-off thing for you?
No. So I worked for Do It for many years. I mean, for 15 years, and we've been. I mean, since we were big in the .NET for a long time, we were subscribers to Telerik's big DevCraft suite. But I know last I was there, we bought like 7 or 8 licenses as well. So it's definitely used on campus.
Did you guys do the main UW mobile app?
No. Yes, I take that back. So it's just when I left, Do It started to reorganize our mobile division, and my group brought in the guy who did the mobile UW app. But that's a native app. You did that with native tools, with Xcode and with Eclipse, yeah.
I used to refer to it also.
Oh, really?
I also used to work for a company called Tura, who put out an open source project called Mulberry, which was using the Dojo toolkit.
Mhm.
But about 2 years ago, they got bought out by a British company, and it was actually doing something very similar to this, except you guys have done it better, which is probably why they went out of business. So it's kind of curious, because it would have been one of the competitors of
Sure.
you guys if that had stayed around. It's not open source anymore, I don't think, though. At least they haven't contributed to that repository in several years. So.
That kind of reminds me too, is there anybody here who works on Ionic?
I was gonna ask you that question, how does it compare?
Yeah. So, I would not call Ionic a competitor, would you guys?
What's that?
You wouldn't call Ionic a competitor to Icenium.
Well,
I mean, because couldn't you use the framework within, I mean, you use the framework within.
Yeah, so it's first a CSS framework that you saw was missing, like any open source CSS framework. But then also we're building around Angular also. So
Yeah, that's right.
like this team worked on Codica first, which is the jQuery mobile interface builder. And because of that, that's where we saw the weaknesses of what jQuery mobile can do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where Ionic is. It's still an alpha, but yeah, that's kind of our big project right now. Yeah, it's close to competitor.
Yeah, we've actually, within Telerik, I can tell you, we've looked at it quite a bit, and the engineers really like it, so.
Good.
And when they found out it was from Madison, they were on my case to. Yeah.
So you know why they decided to integrate an IDE into Icenium?
It's a long story.
It's kind of an odd decision
so-
in my opinion.
I don't know. So I know that when this product first started, and the Icenium product started a couple of years ago, the initial idea was to sort of become a competitor to Visual Studio, which is insane if you think about it. You're not going to compete with Microsoft, an IDE that's been around for 15 years or whatever. So they, at that point, when they had gotten a certain distance, they did a pivot and they decided to approach the hybrid market that way with an IDE.
Greatest headlights in the world shining right now.
And so that's where, when we expand out into the CLI, you're going to see a lot of other IDEs using the build services.
Yeah, because the product that we were putting out was built in Rails. It was called Mobile App Builder, and it was very similar to that, except it didn't have an IDE built into it because it was supposed to be more geared towards kind of non-technical consumers of software as a service. And so that's why it was kind of interesting that you guys put an IDE in there.
Yeah.
Because typically those two kind of realms don't usually mix,
Yes,
like
yeah.
the designers of mobile apps and the people who are writing code.
Yep, I totally agree. Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Has it been successful, do you think, or?
Yeah, I would say so. It's been more successful than I probably would have thought. I think there's a lot of, I think we first saw a lot of hobbyist developers do it. You're not going to see enterprise jumping all over a new tool like this quite yet. But we have a lot of agencies and hobbyists who are getting involved with it. And with the Visual Studio integration, that's when you start seeing more enterprise get involved.
So is Telerik
Yes.
behind Kendo UI?
Yeah, so again, that kind of speaks to the rebranding we're doing because a lot of people never even knew that Kendo UI was part of Telerik at all. So Kendo UI is not having its name changed, though. It's too strong of a brand to mess with. Any other questions?
What's the next conference?
What's the pattern for partitioning your views into separate HTML files in Kendo UI?
There's nothing stopping you from doing that. You can access remote views from Kendo UI Mobile. You just reference the file name, reference the file name, and it accesses the first view on that HTML doc. So there's nothing standing in your way doing that. I did that, but I found out that I was so annoyed by all the squiggly lines saying that href didn't exist, so I ended up putting everything in one humongous index.html file. That's ridiculous. Another question?
How do we prove our devotion enough for food?
That's going to be a good question. I totally dropped the ball and only brought a handful of licenses, so I guess first one to find me in that corner afterwards will. Yeah, there you go.
Premise down.
Promise to upgrade to professionals?
Yeah, really. Yeah, you can sign a contract in the back there.
Loyalty.
So I know there was some joking about a possible competitor here, but kind of not. Who else do you see as your competitor in this space?
That's a good question.
Development,
Sencha's a big competitor of ours. They've done Sencha Studio. I don't know, there's probably a Sencha user here somewhere. Yeah, Sencha Touch is their library. I can't remember the name of their IDE though. Architect? Is that? Okay. Yeah. Who else? PhoneGet Build is a competitor of ours because they have build services. That's from Adobe. But to be honest, we do so much work with them. It's like, and even with Sencha, when we go to conferences and stuff, like we all get together and it's like, it's more like the rising tides lift all boats, to be honest. Like, there's no rivalries or anything. It's like we all want to succeed because when PhoneGet Build succeeds, so do we, just naturally, so.
So what's the fee for publishing stuff in the App Store? Or how
It's
does
the
that
same, it's like, it's the $99 fee for iOS
work?
to develop the license.
So 25 for Android,
Yeah.
99 iOS. What
Yeah.
about Windows Mobile? Another 25.
You know, I don't know, I should know that. I don't know what the fee is.
Or Amazon or
Yeah.
that's true.
So we basically just set up some sort of account extension and then.
Yeah, so that you have to do like through the Apple's website and developer website.
What I'm saying with your publishing service.
Yeah. So you'll go through and you can create your provisioning profiles and your certificates, and you can just upload those within the IDE, and it'll magically sign them for you. Anything else? Can I hand it over to Ryan?